232. 4. Introduction. This is powerful and deeply emotional. It sets up Australia's trauma and isolation vividly, then contrasts it beautifully with the quiet, intense connection forming with Kensington. I'd structure and weave this text into an introduction of Australia's childhood and background that flows naturally, balancing introspection. Sharing details about her father and his passing, and also details regarding the abandonment of her mother. Much of Australia's loneliness stems from having to learn and do things on her own without the help of her mother. And with the death of her father, much of her past trauma caused much of the constant outburst and backlashes. What you are about to read is something intriguing, in hopes to capture the reader's attention, offering a brief distraction from the world. This book was inspired by and dedicated to my father Sammy Lee Morgan in honor of Father's Day. You are truly missed and will forever be in my heart and memory, always. 5. Chapter 1. The Weight of Silence. I never knew how fate worked. Never been properly loved. The earliest years of my life were a battle just to call my father Dad instead of his cold, distant government name. For a fleeting moment, I had a strong male presence, my father. But now, there are only women in my family. It seems all the men were killed or died from unnatural causes. My father's name was Sammy. He was the beater of the Red Moon Pack. A day's travel from home, during a battle with the Sunrise Pack, his own pack mate, Jackson, someone he once called friend, seized the moment and killed him when he least expected it. Envy is a dangerous game. Others witnessed the attack. Jackson was banished and soon after killed by strays. But that truth didn't bring peace. It brought numbness. I couldn't control or even feel my emotions. Blackouts came, fits of rage, and moments of terrifying blankness. I was a storm without direction, one moment kind and gentle, the next a terrorizer. I hated myself for it. People feared me, some hated me, others grew to love me despite the chaos. But no one knew why I was the way I was. Hell, neither did I. Therapy began. Medication was forced upon me. But the pills made me focus too much, too clearly, on how utterly alone I was. No one really loved me. It was all pretend. I sank inside myself, tears burning behind closed lids. I wanted it all to end. But I didn't have it in me to take a life, not even my own. I stopped the medicine. No one could make me take it anymore. Still, things didn't get better. Could you believe someone wanted to see an 8-year-old locked away in a penitentiary? Was I really that bad? I saw the envy and false smiles. They wanted me broken, isolated. They planned my solitary confinement. Their cruelty was clear, but I saw past their masks. And so I gave them what they wanted. I was locked away, restrained, left to suffer. The goddess only made it look like the end. I was broken, defeated, crying day and night. Every day was the same. White brick walls, barred windows, a bed, a desk, a bathroom. 7. When the rage came, they tackled me, strapped me down. I screamed for hours. Surrounded by white-coated watchers, I fought to break free. At such a young age, this nightmare was my reality. Eventually, darkness took me. I woke to a pitch-black room. No windows, a single light on the door. I screamed. No one answered. I watched faces pass by the glass, recognizing one. I shouted until the door opened. The workers saw the sadness in my eyes. Slowly, they tried to comfort me. Hugs, snacks, talks, board games. It helped, a little. Months passed until I was moved to another mental hospital, one with kinder workers. Though depression still gripped me, I had more control. Then came the group home. And there, I met Kensington. Scene. The meeting of fated mates. The group home smelled different than the last. Less bleach and despair, more cedarwood and a faint hint of something sweet, honeysuckle, maybe. I didn't want to care. I'd trained myself not to feel too deeply about places or people. But I felt it the moment he walked in. 8. I was sitting alone in the common room, knees pulled to my chest, eyes fixed on a dusty chessboard no one touched. My silence was my shield. No one expected words from the broken girl in the corner, and that was fine. Then the door opened. A presence filled the room before the scent did. Strong, sure, like leather, rain, and something wild. My wolf stirred sharply, making my breath hitch. She hadn't moved in weeks, not since I arrived, not since I stopped taking the pills. I looked up, and saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, messy dark hair curling just above his collar. Deep brown eyes holding stories. He didn't glance around like most visitors. His eyes found me, instantly, as if he'd been searching for me and only me. Scene continuation. Australia meets Kensington, Kensington. The name echoed in my mind, sticky and warm like honey, clinging to the walls of my chest. My wolf whimpered. I didn't. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. This wasn't happening. Not now. Not to me. What are you doing here? I asked, voice clipped. I hated how small it sounded, how defensive. 9. He didn't flinch. He just watched me with those dark, knowing eyes like he could see everything I'd tried to bury. Every scream, every restraint, every blackout. It made me want to claw at his gaze. The supervisor beside him smiled politely. Australia, this is Kensington. He's the Alpha's son from the Black River Territory. His father asked him to visit. He likes to stay involved with the progress of Pack Youth. Pack Youth? Is that what I was now? A charity case? An unstable burden the Pack wanted to track like a project? Kensington didn't respond to her. His attention was fixed on me, like nothing else in the world mattered. I hated how it made my heart ache. Why are you looking at me like that? I snapped. I don't mean to. His voice was low and soft, but it rumbled through my bones like thunder before the storm. I just know who you are. No, you don't, I said sharply, stepping back. My skin was hot, tingling. My wolf was pressing at the edge of my control, not with rage, but with longing. Need. He took one cautious step forward. Australia. The way he said my name, it wasn't just sound. It was a vow, a whisper that folded itself inside my ribcage and refused to leave. Time didn't stop, but something inside me did. I didn't blink, neither did he. 10. His jaw tightened. He knew. Oh goddess, he knew. Is that her? A woman beside him asked. A supervisor, voice flat. He didn't answer. He stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, as if approaching a wounded animal. I stood before I understood why. My hands shook. My breath came shallow. The wolf inside me, a creature I'd only known through rage and pain, was purring. Soft and content, as if it had found a missing piece and curled beside it. I hated that feeling. Who are you? I demanded, harsher than I meant. His lips parted but no words came. His eyes searched mine, as if he could see every fractured piece, every scar, every shadow I tried to bury. Finally, he said quietly, Kensington. And suddenly, deep in my bones, deep in the blood running with more power than I'd understood, I knew what that name meant. My fated mate. The goddess hadn't abandoned me. She was just waiting. Kensington. 11. The name echoed sticky and warm in my chest. My wolf whimpered. I didn't. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. This wasn't happening. Not now. Not to me. What are you doing here? I asked, voice clipped, small, defensive. He didn't flinch. He just watched me with those dark, knowing eyes, like he saw everything I'd tried to bury, the screams, the restraints, the blackouts. It made me want to claw at his gaze. The supervisor beside him smiled politely. Australia, this is Kensington. He's the Alpha's son from Black River Territory. His father asked him to visit. He likes to stay involved with the progress of Pack Youth. Pack Youth? Was I just a charity case? An unstable burden to be monitored? Kensington didn't answer her. His focus was only on me. I hated how it made my heart ache. Why are you looking at me like that? I snapped. I don't mean to. His voice was low but rumbled through my bones like thunder before a storm. I just know who you are. No, you don't. I stepped back. My skin tingled. My wolf pressed at the edge of my control, not with rage, but with longing. Need. He stepped forward cautiously. 12. Australia. His voice was a vow. A whisper folded inside my ribs, refusing to leave. I didn't ask for this. I know. I'm not ready. I know that too. I stared, lips trembling. My walls, sharp and heavy and high, cracked. Not because of love, not yet. Because for the first time, someone didn't flinch. He didn't see me as a mistake or threat. He saw me. The wolf inside howled. Not in pain, but in recognition. You should go, I said, though a part of me mourned the distance. He hesitated, then nodded. Before he left, he looked back once more. I'll wait, he said simply. Even if it takes years. I'll wait until you're ready. And just like that, he walked away. 13. Alone with the truth. The room was quiet again. Too quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor like it might offer answers. My palms still tingled where I'd clenched them so tightly. My wolf paced restlessly beneath my skin, confused by my rejection, aching in a way I couldn't describe. I wrapped my arms around myself. I wanted to scream, or cry, or both, but nothing came, only silence, and Kensington's voice, echoing in my head like a melody I didn't want to forget. I'll wait. He couldn't mean it. People didn't wait for girls like me. People ran from girls like me. They locked us in rooms with no windows. Gave us pills to dull our screams. Whispered words like unstable, danger, broken. Not fated, not mate. I looked at my reflection in the little metal mirror above the sink. My eyes were glassy, rimmed in red. My hair wild from tossing and turning in a bed too small for peace. Why now? I whispered. The moon goddess had abandoned me when I was 8. When I was screaming. When they held me down. When I begged to be seen. So why now? Why send me a mate when I'd finally learned how not to need anyone? I pressed a hand to my chest. 14, it hurt there. Not sharp. Just hollow. I don't know how to love someone, I admitted aloud. My voice cracked on the words. Not without fear. Not without claws. I was afraid of Kensington. Not because he'd done anything wrong. But because he might be the one person strong enough to reach inside me and touch the parts I'd buried so deep I forgot they existed. And that terrified me. I sank to the floor, knees pulled to my chest, tears finally rising. Not rage, not fear, just grief. Grief for the childhood I didn't get to keep. Grief for the girl no one ever believed. Grief for the part of me that still hoped, still ached, for love, even after everything. A knock on the door startled me. I froze, wiping my face. The door cracked open, and one of the staff leaned in, eyes kind, smile soft. There's dinner if you're hungry. I nodded, even though I wasn't. She lingered. He said your name like it meant something holy. I blinked at her, stunned. Then she gently closed the door behind her, leaving me with those words. Like it meant something holy. 15, and for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to believe. Maybe I wasn't a curse. Still not trusting easily, but something inside her won't let go of the way he made her feel seen. 16 Chapter 2. Australia. The woods were never silent. Even at this hour, when the moon hung like a pale sentinel above the canopy and the world held its breath between the hush of midnight and the stir of dawn, there were always whispers. Leaves rustled like furred wings, branches creaked with old memory, and the river, somewhere to her right, murmured secrets to the stones. But tonight, something listened back. Australia froze at the edge of the glade. Her bare feet pressed into the moss, cold and damp, grounding her. The pulse of the earth beat steady beneath her soles, faint but insistent. She hadn't run far, just enough to escape the circle of firelight and judging eyes behind her. Her ceremonial dress, so carefully prepared for the claiming, was torn at the hem and smudged with ash. She hadn't looked back. 17, not when Ronan said he didn't choose her. Not when the pack murmured, stunned. Not even when her mother called her name, voice cracking. The rejection echoed inside her chest louder than any drumbeat. But now something stirred deeper than pain. Australia tilted her head, eyes narrowed. There, between the birches, the shadows pulled too dark. The air shimmered faintly, as if heat rose from the forest floor though the night was cool. Then it came again, a presence. It wasn't human, it wasn't wolf, and it wasn't alone. She didn't feel fear. That struck her first. The energy brushing against her was massive, ancient. Magic, yes, but something older than the rituals of her pack. Older than fated mates or oaths to the Moon Mother. It knew her. Her breath caught. She took a slow step forward. The moment she crossed the tree line, the world hushed. The wind stopped. The forest held still. She whispered, "Who are you?" 18, a flicker of light, faint violet, like moonlight on amethyst, glimmered from within the trunk of a twisted ash tree. The bark split open, not cracking or breaking, but unfurling like petals. The scent of wild roses and burned cedar filled the air. Australia's wolf stirred in her chest, wide-eyed and silent. A voice, neither male nor female, rippled through her mind. Australia of the crescent flame. You are not forgotten. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on the nearest tree, pulse hammering. Not forgotten. What did that mean? No one calls me that, she whispered. No one's called me that since. She didn't finish the sentence. The name was part of her bloodline, a title her grandmother once whispered over her cradle when the stars aligned at her birth. Crescent flame, A rare blood mark, long believed lost. But it meant nothing now. Not after her rejection. Not after her pack had turned their eyes away. The tree pulsed again with violet light. A shape formed in the air, a sigil drawn in glowing strokes. The lines coiled and spun, shifting until they settled into a rune she recognized only from the forbidden pages in her mother's grimoire. Rite of calling. Calling what? She said aloud, but she already knew. Her fated mate wasn't Ronan. The bond hadn't clicked for a reason. The rejection ceremony had only severed what was never meant to be. 19, her true mate, was something else. Someone else. And the forest, this ancient, waiting thing, had just awoken because he had stepped into the world. She backed away from the sigil. The power tugged at her, demanding. She didn't know whether to cry or laugh. I didn't ask for this, she breathed. But you were born for it, the voice said. And he comes, cloaked in war and blood. Australia has just encountered an ancient force in the woods that recognizes her true bloodline, marking the awakening of something older and more dangerous than her pack understands. Her fated mate is coming, cloaked in war and blood. Australia, she stared at the rune. It floated mid-air now, just above the forest floor, glowing steadily like a cold ember. A warning, or a beckoning, she couldn't tell. Her wolf paced inside her, tense and alert, as if sensing the shift in the currents of fate. What do you want from me? She whispered again. The violet light blinked once. Then, slowly, it faded. 28 gust of wind tore through the glade, icy, unnatural, and suddenly the forest was just a forest again. The tree's bark sealed itself as if it had never opened. The air stilled. The scent of roses and smoke vanished. Australia stood alone, shivering. Behind her, the low, mournful howl of a wolf broke through the silence. One call, then another, then more, a warning. Her blood turned cold. Not pack, not her people. These howls were deeper, wilder, less civilized. Strangers. Her feet moved before her mind did. She turned and sprinted back through the trees, bare legs whipping against brambles, heart thudding against her ribs like a war drum. The woods had always been her sanctuary. But now, she felt them watching. And someone, was watching too. She broke through the edge of the glade and collapsed behind a stone outcrop just as 3 massive wolves padded into the clearing from the north. Her breath caught in her throat. They weren't wearing sigils. No pack markings. No visible allegiance. Their fur was marked with blood, not their own, and their eyes glowed the wrong color. Not gold, not amber, 21 but silver white. Like frostbite, like death, rogues, but not the scattered, desperate kind that sometimes scuttled across pack territory in search of scraps or revenge. These wolves moved with purpose. The largest lifted its snout, sniffed the air, then turned its head directly toward the stone where Australia hid. She clamped her hand over her mouth. The wolf took 1 step forward, then stopped. It looked uncertain, almost hesitant. Then it growled low and sharp, a command. The other 2 fell back. The leader glanced once toward the ash tree, where the rune had shimmered only moments ago, then turned and vanished into the trees, his companions flanking him like shadows. Australia waited, counted heartbeats, 20, 30, a full minute, silence. Then, only then, did she exhale. She stayed hidden for what felt like hours before daring to move. When she finally crawled out, the moon had shifted in the sky. Her limbs ached, and her ceremonial dress now clung to her like a curse. She should go home. 22 face the shame. Pretend the magic hadn't called her. Pretend the rogues weren't real. But as she walked back through the trees, something inside her had changed. Not broken, not yet, but fractured open. There was more to the world than she'd been told. And the mate who had rejected her had merely been a shield. A placeholder. Her true mate was coming. And if the forest spoke truth, he would bring war in his wake. The second meeting, the air was cooler than usual, the kind that pressed gently against your skin and made you feel something. Nostalgic, maybe. I sat alone on the back steps of the group home, knees pulled up, elbows resting on them. The sky above was bruised purple and gold, the last light of day clinging to the clouds like a goodbye. I hadn't seen him again. Not since that day. Not since he said he'd wait. I didn't believe him. Not really. People made promises all the time. Most of them dissolved the second your pain became inconvenient. 23, but still, something inside me had stayed alert. A flicker of attention. A small voice whispering, what if this time, It's different. I hated that voice. I hated hope. Footsteps approached from behind. I tensed instantly, every nerve on edge, preparing for a staff member or maybe one of the new kids who didn't understand boundaries. But the scent hit me before the sound fully did. Wood smoke, pine, the earth after rain. My wolf stilled. Then she purred. I figured you might be out here, came Kensington's voice, soft, low, warm like the firelight. I didn't turn around. You again? He didn't respond with humor or challenge. Just a gentle, yeah. Me again. I heard the scrape of shoes on concrete as he sat beside me. Not close, he gave me space. But I felt him, all the same. That quiet strength, that calm, I hated how much it soothed me. I picked at a loose thread on my sleeve. You didn't have to come back. I know. You should have stayed away. I know that too. 24, I turned to him then, finally. The light caught in his eyes, warm brown with golden flecks. Honest eyes, dangerous eyes. Why are you here, Kensington? He looked down at his hands for a moment, then met my gaze without flinching. Because my wolf won't stop howling for you. And because when I saw you the other day, I felt like I'd just remembered something I was born knowing. I swallowed hard. I'm not, I started, voice catching. I'm not whole. I'm not asking you to be. Silence stretched between us. But it wasn't heavy, not like before. I'm not safe, I said finally. I've hurt people. He nodded slowly. And I've seen war. I've killed to protect what's mine. Pain doesn't scare me, Australia. But, I scare me, I whispered. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, do I scare you? I looked at him again. No, I admitted. That's the problem. His eyes didn't brighten with pride. He just looked sad. Understanding. I don't expect you to trust me, he said. But I meant what I said. I'll wait, even if all I get right now is this moment. I looked down at our hands, resting side by side, not touching. Then, slowly, deliberately, I let my hand brush against his. 25, it was stupid. Tiny, nothing. But I swear the stars above held their breath. Seen, the first true connection. His hand didn't move, didn't pull away. It just stayed there, warm, present, a small touch. The silence between us shifted, not uncomfortable, not tense. Just quiet, safe. I used to dream about a world where no one was afraid of me, I said softly. Where I wasn't afraid of me either. Kensington didn't interrupt. He just listened. My mom left when I was 5, I continued, eyes still on our fingers. Said I was too wild, even then. Too much of my father in me. She left me with him, and then, he died. After that, no one wanted to deal with me. No one stayed. Not really. He was still quiet. That made it easier to go on. When the blackout started, people began to look at me differently. Like I was cursed. Dangerous. I felt like my skin didn't even belong to me anymore. I'd wake up sore, bruised, restrained, and they'd tell me what I did. What she did. I pressed a hand to my chest, where my wolf curled tightly inside me. The wolf. She was always angry, always hurting, and so was I. Kensington turned his palm up, letting it rest there between us, open. 26, not a demand. Just an offering. I stared at it. My hands trembled. Still, I placed mine in his. I used to think the moon goddess hated me, I whispered. That maybe I was some kind of divine mistake. His thumb gently traced circles over the back of my hand. She doesn't make mistakes, Australia, he said quietly. But sometimes she puts the heaviest burdens on the strongest shoulders. Because she knows who can survive them. I don't feel strong. You don't have to feel it to be it. I looked up at him then. The way he looked at me. Like I wasn't broken. Like I wasn't a threat. Like I was a soul worth knowing, not a problem to fix. It undid something in me. I don't know how to do this, I said, voice cracking. I don't know how to let someone in. Then let's start slow, he said. You don't have to give me everything. Just give me this. This moment. This truth. A tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. Kensington reached up and wiped it away with his thumb, so gently, like I might shatter if he touched too hard. 27, you feel like fire and sadness, he whispered. But I'm not afraid to burn, Australia. I leaned into him, just a little, just enough to feel the steady beat of his heart beneath his shirt. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a storm waiting to destroy everything. I felt like someone worth staying for. Seen, Moonlight and revelation. The moon called to me. Not like a whisper, but like a pulse. A rhythm beneath my skin, drawing me out of the house, out of my head. Everyone else was asleep. The group home was still, cloaked in the kind of silence that comes just before change. I padded barefoot through the cold grass behind the building, pulled by something I couldn't name. My wolf stirred, restless, alert. I found Kensington there, beneath the old ash tree near the hill's edge, shirt sleeves rolled up, arms crossed as he stared at the glowing moon like it had answers he was waiting for. You felt it too, I said. He turned, eyes shadowed but soft. Yeah, 28. We stood there for a beat, then I stepped closer. I don't know why, but I feel like something's about to happen. He nodded. I do too. And just as he said it, the wind shifted. The air changed. The moon above us flared brighter, silver and radiant, pouring down a light that felt almost liquid. It washed over us, cool and warm all at once, like memory and prophecy mixed. My breath hitched. Kensington stepped to my side. It's her. And then everything went still. No wind, no sound, just that moonlight, and a voice, clear as the stars and older than the sky itself, spoke inside me. Australia of the red moon, you are not forgotten. Tears welled instantly. My knees buckled, but Kensington caught me. You were never abandoned. I veiled you in shadow so you would survive the fire. So you could become the light. The voice was ancient and feminine, strong and soothing. It echoed with every ancestor I'd never known. 29. The pain was not punishment. It was preparation. You are more than a wolf. More than your rage. You are a key. A key. I whispered aloud, heart pounding. The blood of the beater. The soul of a seer. The path is yours to choose, but the bond cannot be undone. Beside me, Kensington stiffened slightly. I looked up. He was hearing it too. Together, you are power. Apart, you are pain. Choose each other, and awaken what was hidden. The light began to dim, slowly, fading like breath on glass. I grabbed his hand. Did you hear it? I whispered, heart trembling. He nodded, every word. I couldn't stop shaking, not from fear, but from knowing. All my life, I thought I was cursed, broken, cast out, but she had been watching, guiding. I looked at him, truly looked, and there it was. Not just a mate, not just someone who saw me, but someone I was meant to walk this path with. Kensington, I whispered, voice shaking, what if this is real? All of it, you and me, the key, the power. He pulled me into his arms, forehead pressed to mine. 30, then let's not run from it anymore. The moonlight faded, but something inside us had lit up. And it wasn't going out again. 31. Chapter 3, The Awakening and the Warning. After the moonlight faded and the voice stilled, sleep was impossible. The next morning, I woke with a lingering hum in my bones. Not loud, but constant. A soft thrum just beneath the surface, like I was vibrating at a higher frequency than the world around me. Everything looked sharper, the sun through the blinds, the dust floating in its beams, the lines in my palm. My senses were heightened, and my wolf, she was no longer snarling. She was listening. I sat up slowly, pressing a hand to my chest. My heartbeat wasn't racing, but it felt purposeful, rhythmic, as if it was keeping time with something larger than myself. Outside, birds chirped in chaotic harmony, but even that had changed. Their sounds weren't just noise, they carried emotion, frustration, joy, urgency. A knock sounded softly on my door before I could fully gather myself. Kensington, 32. I knew it before he even spoke. Something about the way his presence stretched toward mine through the walls. My senses reached for him instinctively, like branches straining for sunlight. Australia, he called gently. You're awake. I opened the door without a word. He stood there with a quiet intensity, his hands in the pockets of his grey hoodie. Beside him, lying in the grass, was a long bundle wrapped in worn, dark leather. He nodded toward it. I called my father. The words made my breath catch. The Alpha. Kensington nodded. He said it was time. Time for what? Without answering, he stepped forward, knelt, and began to unwrap the bundle. Inside was a book, old, bound in deep red hide, the leather cracked with age. The symbol of the moon goddess glinted in soft silver on the cover, a crescent moon cradling a cluster of stars. The symbol of the moon goddess glinted in soft silver on the cover, a crescent moon cradling a cluster of stars. But beneath the moon, another symbol shimmered faintly, a key crossed with a dagger. He held it out to me. "What is this?" I whispered. "A seer's journal," he said. "It belonged to your grandmother. She was a rare kind of wolf, one who could walk between the spiritual realm and ours." I stared at it, my fingers tingling before I even touched it. "I never knew her, 33. No one wanted you to," Kensington said quietly. "They were afraid of what you'd become." I took the book. It was warm, not just from the sun. Warm like something alive. I opened it gently. The pages were fragile, but the ink was strong, precise, flowing script. Symbols danced in the corners, some glowing faintly under my fingertips. And then I saw it. My name. Australia. She will be the one who feels everything, carries everything. But when she unlocks what sleeps within her, she will awaken the long-dormant bloodline. She will see. I will see. I echoed, my voice shaking. Kensington nodded. Not just visions, but the truth, emotion, memory, energy. You're a soul reader, Australia. You feel things because you were born to know things others can't. I started to shake. That's why I couldn't control my rage, I whispered. Why people feared me. He reached out, steadying my hands. "It was your gift, bleeding through before you were ready." The journal pulsed with warmth. And then, it happened. Not like a dream, more like being ripped from one body and thrust into another. 34, I gasped. Suddenly, I was standing in the woods. It was night. The moon cast broken light through the canopy. Screams echoed. Wolves snarled and yelped. Blood soaked the earth. My father, Sammy, was fighting. Surrounded, I could smell the metallic bite of blood, the desperation in his movements. And then I saw who he turned to protect. Kensington, younger, terrified. Behind Sammy stood Jackson, and I felt it. Not just the betrayal, but Jackson's envy, his hatred, his belief that he should have been better, that he deserved it. The moment snapped like a whip, and I stumbled backward, gasping for breath. Kensington caught me before I fell. I saw it. I choked out. I saw the moment. I saw my father die. I felt why it happened. "That's your power," he said, awed. "You unlock truth. You unlock pain. You unlock light." Tears burned my eyes as I clutched the journal to my chest. So that's what the goddess meant. The blood of the beater, the soul of a seer. Kensington nodded. "You're the key, not to a door, but to our people's healing. To restore what was lost." 35, but I don't know how to control it, I said, voice cracking. He leaned forward, forehead to mine. "Then we'll learn together," and for the first time, I believed it. I wasn't broken, I was awakened. Scene 2, a warning in the shadows. The days after my vision were like walking through new skin. Everything felt different, sharper, deeper. I could feel the weight behind people's words, the lies beneath their smiles. I didn't just hear what people said, I heard what they meant. What they were too afraid to say out loud. My wolf moved differently now, no longer bristling with confused rage, but calm and hyper-aware. Alert, listening. Kensington stayed close, sensing the shift in me. He walked beside me like a sentinel, his touch grounding when the emotions of others grew too loud. But not everyone welcomed my transformation, especially not Marana, the Alpha's top enforcer. Tall, cold, beautiful like a blade, she commanded respect like it was her birthright. Her presence alone could silence a room. And she hated me. 36, she hadn't said it. But I felt it, pure, seething disdain. She'd been the one expected to mold Kensington's future, to guide him, and to make sure he chose Maris, her younger sister, as his mate. But now, Kensington's every glance made her eyes narrow. My very presence frayed her control. The confrontation came as I knew it would. One evening, as dusk spilled violet light across the trees, I stepped outside the group home. The air was heavy, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Marana waited at the edge of the path. She wore black, as always. Her coat fluttered in the breeze like dark wings. She didn't smile. "Australia," she said smoothly. "We need to talk." I stopped. "About what?" "About what you're becoming." She stepped forward, circling me like a predator gauging prey. "The moon goddess speaks to all of us. But power like yours, that kind of gift comes with consequences. People begin to fear what they don't understand. Fear turns to whispers. Whispers turn to orders." My stomach tightened. "Are you threatening me?" "No." She smiled faintly. "I'm warning you." I opened my senses. The swirl of her emotions hit me, carefully controlled, but underneath. 37 Fear, anger, resentment. You're scared, I said quietly. Because you know what I am. And you know I can see through you. Her smile froze. You don't know what I've seen, I continued. What you've done, what you let happen. She went still. You helped cover up my father's death, I whispered. Didn't you? A flicker, the tiniest crack in her icy facade. But enough. You're playing with fire, little wolf, she said, her voice colder now. You think the goddess gave you a gift? Maybe. Or maybe she gave you a curse to destroy us all. I won't let that happen. She turned and vanished into the forest path, her message delivered. Scene 3, the distraction that night. After Mirana's warning, I sat on the edge of the balcony, clutching the journal against my chest. The wind chilled my skin, but my blood was boiling. Kensington arrived quietly, drawn to me like always. But he wasn't alone. With him came Lyra. Leora was stunning, tall, with honeyed skin and hair like wild mahogany flames. She was full of laughter and lure wrapped in silk, and she had her sights set on Kensington. Always had. Australia, she said sweetly, brushing past him. I hope I'm not interrupting. 38 she was. She knew it. Kensington glanced at me, uncertain. Lyra was checking in. She brought something from the Alpha's hall. She placed a folded cloth on the railing. Just a token. But really, I came to talk. With every movement, she was deliberate, graceful and tempting. Her hand brushed Kensington's arm. Too long, too familiar. I felt it again, that low thrum. But this time it wasn't awakening. It was warning. Leora turned to me, head tilted. You're special, Australia. Everyone sees it, even the Alpha. But, I asked flatly. She smiled. But some gifts shine too bright. They burn the ones closest to them. Kensington stepped between us then. That's enough. Leora's eyes sparkled with something dangerous. I only came to offer comfort. You know how to find me. She slipped away like a shadow cloaked in perfume. I stared after her, heart pounding. Kensington touched my hand. Don't let her get in your head. I'm not worried about her, I said quietly. I'm worried about what she's being told to do. Because I didn't just feel her lust. 39 I felt her orders. Temptation at dusk later that same day, the sun hung low over the trees, painting the horizon in amber and gold. I found a quiet moment to breathe near the training grounds, drawn to the fading warmth of the evening. That's when I saw them, Kensington and Leora. Leora was one of the elite fighters. Tall, curvy, with storm grey eyes and a laugh that turned heads. She was always around the males, sparring with them like she had something to prove, and usually winning. But I'd never seen her look at Kensington the way she was now. She leaned against the fence post, her body angled toward him, her voice a low murmur. Kensington stood stiffly, his arms crossed, but he wasn't moving away. I stepped back into the shadows. I heard the Sears girl is causing ripples, Leora said, her tone honeyed. But you've always liked your mysteries, haven't you? Kensington said nothing, but I saw the twitch in his jaw. Leora closed the distance between them. You used to look at me like that, remember? She purred, fingers brushing his chest. Before all this fate and prophecy nonsense. Before she came back, his hand caught her wrist before she could trail lower. 40, that was before I knew what I was looking for, he said quietly. Her smile faltered. I don't know what game you think you're playing, Leora, he continued, but I'm not a prize. And Australia isn't your competition, isn't she? Leora's voice sharpened. You think the others will let her walk into power untouched? You think you can protect her from what's coming just because you've decided she's yours? Kensington's eyes turned to steel. She is mine, not because of prophecy, because I choose her every time. Leora snorted, stepping back. Then I hope she's worth bleeding for. She turned and stalked off into the woods, her shoulders tight with fury. I exhaled slowly from the shadows, my pulse racing. My heart ached, not with jealousy, but with the weight of the war one was walking into. A war not just of politics or power, but of hearts. Loyalties, desires. Kensington turned slightly, his gaze sweeping the tree line. He didn't call out, but I knew he felt me watching. His voice echoed softly, I only see you, Australia. And somehow, I believed him. She turned and stalked off into the woods, her shoulders tight with fury. My stomach twisted, a nauseating coil of emotion rising up my throat. I hadn't expected to see him like that, close, even for a moment, with someone like her. 41 Jealousy wasn't new to me. But this was deeper. It wasn't just the sight of her hand on his chest, or the way her voice curled like smoke around his name. It was the fear that maybe I was too much. Too broken. Too strange. That maybe someone like Kensington, strong, steady, chosen, would one day realize he deserved someone simpler. Someone easier. Someone like Leora. I hated that the thought had roots. That it stuck. But then I felt it. His rejection of her. The steel in his voice. The unwavering certainty in his emotions when he said I chose her. It reached me like a flare through the shadows, cutting through the poison whispering lies in my own head. And yet, the ache didn't disappear. Because love wasn't a shield. Not in a place like this. Not with eyes watching, waiting for me to stumble. For him to waver, I stayed hidden, not out of cowardice, but out of self-preservation. Because even as his words reached for me, I wasn't sure I could reach back without falling apart. She turned and stalked off into the woods, her shoulders tight with fury. My stomach twisted, a nauseating coil of emotion rising up my throat. I hadn't expected to see him like that, close, even for a moment, with someone like her. Jealousy wasn't new to me. But this was deeper. It wasn't just the sight of her hand on his chest, or the way her voice curled like smoke around his name. 42, it was the fear that maybe I was too much. Too broken, too strange. That maybe someone like Kensington, strong, steady, chosen, would one day realize he deserved someone simpler. Someone easier. Someone like Leora. I hated that the thought had roots. That it stuck. But then I felt it. His rejection of her. The steel in his voice. 43 Chapter 4. The Binding Truth. The moment the ritual ended, my body gave out. I collapsed to the ground, knees scraping stone, breath shallow and ragged. The truth I'd unlocked, the memory of Jackson and Marana, burned in my veins like wildfire. My vision blurred as the pain surged, too vast for one soul to hold. Kensington was beside me in an instant. Australia, I couldn't speak. I barely registered his arms around me, his scent wrapping around the chaos. I was drowning in emotions that weren't mine. Anger, fear, ambition, betrayal. My senses spiraled. I heard everything, every footstep, every heartbeat in the room, every whispered thought. Too powerful, unstable. What if she turns on us? My stomach turned. I lunged to the side, retching until there was nothing left but dry heaves. Kensington shielded me from the crowd, his hands firm but gentle. Breathe, he whispered, pressing my hand to his chest. Right here, just feel this. Nothing else. 44 his heartbeat. Steady, unshaken. I clung to that rhythm like a lifeline. Gradually, the flood of noise dulled to a murmur. My wolf curled inside me, protective now instead of wild. I saw everything. I whispered hoarsely. They planned it. They let my father die. I know, he said, fury tightening his voice. But now the truth is out. They can't hide anymore. Or so we thought. Scene 2. Judgment of the council. It didn't take long. The council summoned me the next day. The oldest wolves of the pack, cloaked in ceremonial robes, bearing the marks of age and magic, gathered in a cold stone chamber carved deep into the earth. At the center stood Marana, her expression impassive. To her left was Elder Bryn, her silver hair in a tight braid and her mouth perpetually downturned. You've unlocked a rare and dangerous power, Bryn began, her voice echoing through the chamber. A soul reader unchecked could bring ruin to us all. I didn't ask for this, I replied. But I won't turn away from it either. You claim to see the truth, Elder Marrow said, eyes narrowing. But truth can be distorted, colored by desire, by pain, or by fear, I added pointedly. Marana stepped forward, voice smooth as silk. Perhaps a test is in order. The binding oath of the Hollow Grove. If her vision's a truth, the oath will confirm it. Kensington bristled beside me. You can't. I'll do it, I interrupted. Let's put your doubts to rest. They drew a circle of salt and ash. At the center, I knelt, my hand placed on an obsidian stone carved with the moon goddess's sigil. The moment I spoke the oath, pain lanced through my skull. My wolf surged forward without warning, golden eyes flashing through mine. The council gasped. She's shifting. 45. No, Kensington said sharply. She's controlling it. With everything in me, I wrestled the shift back. Breathing hard, I finished the oath. Silence. Then the stone pulsed silver. Truth. Bryn's mouth twitched. So be it. but I saw the fear behind their eyes. Scene 3. Beneath the moon's judgment that night, I returned to the cliffs. The moon hung like a blade in the sky, sharp and merciless. I stood barefoot on the ledge, toes curling into cool stone. The wind bit at my skin. I needed to feel it, to bleed the pain away. I miss you, I whispered to the stars. Dad, I'm sorry I couldn't save you. A stillness fell over the world. Then, the moon pulsed. A glow shimmered over the cliff's edge. Stars shifted, twisting into the shape of a great wolf. Australia, a voice said, soft and ancient. It was her, my grandmother. You were never meant to be small. Why me? I asked, tears streaking down my face. Why all of this? Because only those who break are strong enough to rebuild. Your pain is your power. Don't let them chain it. The stars faded, the glow vanished, and I was alone. Until I wasn't. Scene 4. The first kiss. Kensington found me moments later, breath catching when he saw my face streaked with tears and moonlight. I felt you pull away, he said. I couldn't stay behind. I'm not who I was, I whispered. I'm becoming something else. 46, I know, he said. And I still see you. His fingers brushed my jaw. His eyes searched mine. I don't want fate, I said. I want you. His lips met mine like a promise. Heat surged through me. Not just desire, but connection. Magic. Memory. Everything we were and everything we could be collided in that moment. His hands held me as if I were sacred. I pressed closer, greedy for his warmth. He pulled away just enough to whisper, then have me. All of me, even if the world burns. And I believed him, but deep in my bones, I knew, the fire had only just begun. 47 Chapter 5. Ashes of the Past. The forest whispered of change. The moon hung low, a sliver of silver slicing the night sky as I moved through the woods with purpose. My senses, sharper than ever, picked up every shift in the leaves, every heartbeat beyond the trees. My wolf was restless tonight, not from danger, but from anticipation. Something was coming, or someone. I moved deeper into the trees, following the hum in my bones that had only grown stronger since unlocking the Seer's Journal. The night air grew colder, denser, and then I felt it, an old, familiar thread of energy brushing against mine. Ronan. The name crashed through me like a wave against rock. The male who had once been my everything. The one who had marked me, only to reject me when the council deemed me unworthy. The one whose absence left a scar so deep I stopped believing in fate. And now, he was here. I froze as his scent flooded the clearing before me. Earth and pine, fire and regret. He stepped into the moonlight. 48, broad-shouldered, taller than I remembered. His dark hair was shorter now, jaw sharper, gaze haunted. But it was him, and his wolf surged forward at the sight of me, brushing against my soul like it never wanted to let go again. Australia, he said, voice low, raw. I've come for you. I couldn't breathe. You don't get to just come back, I said, every word ice. You made your choice. His eyes burned. I was a fool. I was scared. They told me you were dangerous, that your power would destroy me. But I see it now. You were never the threat. You were the light. I shook my head, stepping back. It's too late. No, he growled, stepping forward. I won't let it be. I feel the bond again. It never broke. You're mine, Australia. You were always mine. Before I could answer, a second presence exploded into the clearing. Kensington. His body was all tension, his aura blazing. Get away from her. Ronan's eyes narrowed. So it's true. You marked her. I didn't need to. She chose me. The two wolves circled each other, energy crackling between them like lightning trapped in storm clouds. You left her, Kensington growled. You gave her up, and now you think you can return, tail between your legs, and claim what you tossed away. Ronan bared his teeth. You don't understand. You've never felt what we had. She was mine first. You never deserved her. Their wolves surged to the surface. Kensington's dark and powerful, Ronan's sleek and fast. I shouted, but it was too late. They clashed. 49. The battle that erupted was brutal, primal. Claws slashed, teeth snapped, earth tore beneath their fury. Every move was a declaration. Ronan fighting for redemption, Kensington fighting for loyalty and love. I stood paralyzed as blood sprayed against the trees, as roars echoed through the forest. Kensington struck hard, knocking Ronan into a tree. But Ronan sprang back with a wild snarl, tackling him to the ground. Stop, I screamed, power vibrating in my voice. The air rippled. Both wolves froze. I stepped between them, shaking with rage. I am not a prize to be won in battle. Ronan shifted, his chest heaving, blood streaking his arms. I didn't come to fight you, Australia. I came to prove I'm not the coward who left you. Kensington's eyes blazed, but he didn't move. I looked at Ronan, heart torn. You don't get to demand anything. Not anymore. If you truly regret what you did, then leave. Earn your redemption. Away from me. Ronan stared at me for a long moment. Then he lowered his head. I'll wait. For as long as it takes. He turned and vanished into the shadows. Kensington approached slowly. You okay? No. I whispered. But I will be. We stood in silence, the echoes of the fight still trembling in the air. Some ghosts didn't want to stay buried, and some hearts had to bleed before they could heal. The aftermath of the battle between Ronan and Kensington left the training grounds in eerie silence. Blood still stained the dirt where their fight had raged, and the scent of sweat and fury 50 clung to the air like a ghost. No one spoke of it openly, but everyone felt the shift. The air around the pack was tighter, the glances sharper, the alliances more fragile. Ronan had not left. He lingered at the edge of the camp, bruised but unbowed. Kensington had bested him, but it hadn't broken the fire in Ronan's eyes. Australia avoided him, but she could feel his presence like a thorn pressed beneath the skin. Regret clung to him, thick and bitter, and when their eyes met across the grounds, she felt the pull of the broken bond. Not the same as it had been before, but something warped, shadowed by history. Australia paced the tree line beyond the dens, the Seer's journal clutched under one arm. The pages whispered to her now, opening in response to her presence, revealing more fragments of prophecy, visions of war and healing, of betrayal, and of love tested in the fire of transformation. The forest offered quiet, but no comfort. Kensington joined her just past dusk, his hair still damp from the river, his knuckles raw from the fight. He didn't speak at first, just walked beside her. When he finally broke the silence, his voice was tired but sure. You don't owe him anything. Australia didn't look at him. He was my mate. He rejected you, and still the bond lingers, she whispered, bitter. Fate isn't so easily rewritten. Kensington stepped in front of her, forcing her to meet his eyes. Then we write something stronger. Something chosen. Her breath hitched, the pull between them electric. She reached up, fingers brushing the edge of his jaw, and the world tilted again. Her gift flared, and for a heartbeat, she saw his fear. Not of Ronan, but of losing her, of not being enough. She swallowed, grounding herself. We need to leave the camp. His brow furrowed. Why? 51, because I need answers. And the journal won't open fully here. I think it needs to be where it was written. My grandmother's old den. Kensington hesitated. That's in the HoloLens. Australia nodded. Then that's where we go. They left under cover of night. No fanfare. No warnings. Australia didn't tell Ronan. The HoloLens was several days' run from the heart of the pack territory, carved out by time and old blood. The journey was grueling, and with each step, the forest thickened, shadows stretching longer, whispering secrets only she could hear. Her wolf pressed against her skin, alert, restless. It was on the second night that danger found them. Bandits. Not wolves. Rogues. Outcasts. Magic-bent hybrids who didn't belong to any pack. They fell on Kensington and Australia from the trees, claws gleaming, fangs bared. Kensington reacted instantly, shifting mid-leap, his grey wolf form massive and brutal. Australia stood her ground, her magic flaring with a blue-white heat. One rogue lunged for her, and with a cry, she threw her palm forward. The soul-reading power burst from her like a storm. The rogue screamed, his mind flooded by his own darkest truths. He crumpled, twitching. Kensington took down two more, his jaws crushing bone. Another turned to run, but Australia's vision flashed, and she saw where he would go, a trap laid further ahead. Don't let him escape, she shouted. Kensington surged forward, intercepting the rogue in a blur of fur and fury. When it was over, the ground was littered with bodies, and Australia was shaking. Kensington shifted back, blood staining his chest. He reached for her, and she didn't flinch. You were incredible, he said. 52, she looked at the chaos around them. No, it was necessary. By the time they reached the HoloLens, Australia could feel the journal hum. The air here was different, thick with forgotten magic. Her grandmother's den was nestled at the base of a twisted cedar, covered in vines and moss. Inside, the walls were lined with carvings, glowing faintly under Australia's touch. The journal opened on its own. Words spilled across the pages, burning with silver light. She who survives rejection and finds strength in truth shall wield the memory of the moon. The war will not be won with teeth, but with the awakening of what was buried. Beneath the message, an image formed, 3 wolves standing together, one with eyes like fire, one with eyes like a storm, and one cloaked in light. Australia's breath caught. She recognized them. 53 Chapter 6, Beneath the Surface. Her, Kensington, and Ronan. Back at the camp, a council was forming. Maris and Marana whispered in the Alpha's ears, sowing doubt. The news of Australia and Kensington's departure stirred unease. And Ronan, he watched the rising tension with narrowed eyes. He might have lost the battle, but the war was far from over. The journal trembled in her hands. A pulse, soft and rhythmic, throbbed through her fingertips. Australia placed her palm on the glowing image of the 3 wolves and gasped as her surroundings shifted. Not physically, but her spirit was pulled from her body into a vision. The den faded, replaced by a battlefield drenched in moonlight. Wolves circled one another, bloodied and panting. Above them stood a tall figure cloaked in celestial light. Her eyes were white flame. Her voice, when she spoke, was thunder layered with sorrow. 54, you were warned, my children. The rot festers not at the border, but within the spine of the pack. Betrayal does not come howling from the shadows, but walks in daylight, clothed in command. The vision spun, revealing a familiar face, Marana, kneeling before a dark altar, her hand raised in supplication. Behind her, Maris offered a chalice filled with something black and gleaming. Australia cried out, the vision tearing from her lungs like a scream. Kensington caught her as she collapsed, his hands cradling her head. What did you see? He asked urgently. Her voice cracked. They're planning to usurp the Alpha, to take over the council and destroy any bloodline tied to the Seers. Kensington's face darkened. They're using you as an excuse. No, she whispered. They're using Ronan. Back at camp, the trap was already being laid. Ronan stood before the gathering crowd, the sun bleeding gold behind him. His bruises had healed, but his fury had not. Marana stood beside him, cool and calculating, Maris behind her, eyes gleaming with ambition. She left, Marana announced. Abandoned her pack and took the future Beta with her. The Seer's blood cannot be trusted. We've already seen what that power can do. Mind reading, memory forging, emotional tampering. What's next? She is still our kin, one voice said weakly from the crowd. Maris stepped forward. Australia is not a sister. She's a weapon, and if we do not choose who holds that weapon, it will destroy us all. Ronan's voice was hoarse. I never asked for this. Marana's smile didn't reach her eyes. But you can end it. Reclaim her, break the bond yourself, and pledge loyalty to the council. 55 he hesitated. Or, she added softly, we name her enemy. And she doesn't come back at all. In the HoloLens, Australia woke with fire under her skin. She could feel it, the name spoken with malice. The bond tugged, twisted. Ronan, Marana, her wolf raged, scratching at the inside of her chest. They're branding me a traitor, she whispered. Kensington stood, shirtless, sword strapped across his back. Then we go back and stop them. She shook her head. Not yet. There's something here, something hidden. She reached toward the back wall of the den, where ancient carvings danced in the dim glow. Her fingers grazed a symbol, a crescent moon pierced by a dagger, and the stone gave way, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, light pooled across old scrolls and bones wrapped in faded cloth. Kensington stared. Is that my grandmother? Australia whispered. A ghostly form shimmered in the air. The spirit of the seer. Daughter of my daughter, the apparition said, voice made of wind and memory. You are the blade meant to split truth from illusion. But beware, power without love becomes tyranny, and love without sacrifice becomes weakness. Australia dropped to her knees, overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You do, the seer replied. Because you were born knowing. You just needed to remember. That night, Australia dreamed of a silver throne wrapped in vines, of Kensington kneeling in blood, of Ronan standing between her and a woman cloaked in smoke, and of herself, older, crowned in moonlight, holding a blade forged from memory. They began the journey back at dawn. They moved quickly through forest and shadow, but they were not fast enough. 56 on the second day, they reached the outskirts of the camp, and were met by a wall of guards. "Halt!" the lead shouted. "Australia of the Seers line, you are hereby summoned for judgment under the council's decree." Kensington growled low, stepping forward. But Australia lifted a hand. "No, let me speak." She stepped into view, eyes burning with silver light, the journal clutched in one hand. "Summon the council. I will face them." The amphitheater in the center of the village had never held so many wolves. They circled the dais in silence, the council seated in a line, Marana in black, Maris beside her, smug and sweetly smiling. Ronan stood at the edge, his expression unreadable. Australia walked to the center. "I was born of Seer's blood," she said. "But I have not come to destroy. I've come to remember." She raised the journal, and it opened on its own. The pages turned, symbols lit up, and a gust of wind blew through the amphitheater as if the moon herself exhaled. A voice rose, not Australia's, but her grandmother's. "The betrayer is not the wolf who walks in visions. It is the one who poisons the mind of her kin. Blood will answer blood, but only truth will break the curse." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Maris stood, her smile gone. "This is manipulation, trickery." Australia turned her power on her. The journal flared, and Maris reeled, clutched her head, and dropped to her knees, sobbing, visions flooding her mind. Everyone saw it. Marana's ritual. 57 The bribe. The spell cast on Ronan to deepen his rage. The moment she whispered in the Alpha's ear, "Let the seer die if she must." Ronan staggered back, betrayed. "You used me," he snarled. Marana hissed. "She is unclean. She is dangerous." "No," Kensington said, stepping beside Australia. "She is ours." And then the Alpha spoke, voice heavy with judgment. "No more secrets. No more lies. The seer stands protected. Marana is exiled." As dusk fell, Australia sat alone beneath the moon. Ronan approached her, quiet, small. "I didn't know," he said. "They twisted everything." She looked at him, her voice calm. "You still left me. You still broke me." He dropped to one knee. "Let me atone." Her hand hovered over his head, and she saw his remorse. Real, deep, but it wasn't enough. "I forgive you," she said. "But my heart is no longer yours to claim." He nodded, rising slowly. "Then I'll protect it from afar." Later, Kensington joined her. He didn't speak, just took her hand. And under the silver sky, the new chapter of the pack began. Not ruled by fear, but by truth, and by the fire of a seer who had finally awakened. 58 Chapter 7. New bonds and old wounds. The camp had settled into a fragile peace, but the echoes of recent turmoil still hung like a low fog. Australia found herself walking the clearing beneath the sprawling oaks, sunlight dappling her skin, the seer's journal safely tucked away in her pack. The faces around her no longer whispered with suspicion or fear. Instead, curious eyes and tentative smiles met her gaze. She breathed in the scent of pine and earth and felt, finally, a flicker of hope. Her first new friend was Lani, a lithe, quick-witted wolf with copper hair and eyes that seemed to hold storms. They met near the communal fire pit where the pack gathered to share meals and stories. "You're the seer, right?" Lani asked, tossing a small log onto the flames. Australia nodded, a little wary. "I am. Don't be so stiff," Lani said, grinning. "We've all got secrets. Besides, it takes guts to stand where you did today." Australia's lips curved in a genuine smile. "Thank you, Lani." 59 Their conversation flowed easily, laughter threading through shared tales of childhood mischief and the strange rituals of the pack. For the first time in months, Australia felt the weight in her chest lighten. Meanwhile, a few paces away, Kensington sat on a fallen log, the amber glow of the fire flickering in his deep eyes. At his side were two packmates, Jarek, a gruff but loyal warrior with a booming laugh, and Fen, a younger wolf with a quick tongue and sharp mind. "To surviving another day in this madhouse," Jarek said, raising his flask. Kensington accepted the drink, the burn of the whiskey warming more than just his throat. "Got to admit," Fen chimed in, "never thought the Alpha's mate would have the nerve to come back swinging like that." Kensington smiled wryly. "Neither did I." They shared stories, of old battles, lost loves, and dreams they barely dared to voice. Kensington found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't since before the fight with Ronan. "Why do you stick around, Jarek?" Kensington asked, voice low. Jarek shrugged, eyes distant. Because this pack's family. Flawed as hell, but family. You. Because someone worth fighting for showed me what loyalty really means. Fen smiled knowingly. Sounds like you found more than just a mate, friend. Back near the fire, Australia and Lani watched the men, exchanging a glance. She's good for him, Lyra said softly. And he's good for her. Australia nodded, but her thoughts drifted to the undercurrents still swirling beneath the surface. Friendships were fragile things, especially in a pack where history was written in blood and betrayal. Whatever comes next, she whispered to herself, we face it together. 60 The night air hummed with laughter and warmth as the pack gathered around the fire. Australia sat with her new friends, Lani, Sarah, and others, finding comfort in their easy camaraderie. Yet her eyes kept drifting toward Kensington, who stood apart, talking quietly with Jarek and Fen. A shadow moved through the crowd, tall, graceful, with dark hair catching the firelight. It was Leora, Marana's sister. Leora's gaze locked on Kensington with intent. She approached smoothly, her voice like velvet as she greeted him. Kensington, she said, a teasing smile playing on her lips. I didn't expect to find you here, looking so burdened. Kensington looked up, surprised but composed. Leora, she let her fingers brush lightly along his arm, the touch lingering just long enough to send a ripple of tension through the air. Australia watched from a distance, heart tightening with a bitter mix of jealousy and frustration. She clenched her fists under the table, forcing herself to breathe slowly, not wanting to make a scene. Jarek noticed Leora's boldness and muttered, well, looks like the real party's starting. Fen's eyes darkened, but he said nothing. Kensington shifted uneasily. Leora, this isn't the time. Leora smiled knowingly. When is the right time? You and Australia, such a fascinating pair. But don't you deserve freedom? Australia's gaze burned, but she stayed silent, unwilling to give Leora the satisfaction of a confrontation. Leora's smile grew sharp. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper meant only for Kensington. You deserve more than chains. Kensington's jaw tightened. He glanced toward Australia briefly, then stepped back, breaking the contact. 61, I am loyal to Australia, he said firmly. Leora's smile faltered but remained. For now, she melted back into the crowd, leaving a trail of tension behind her. Australia exhaled slowly, a storm of emotions swirling inside. Jealousy, anger, fear. Lani reached over, squeezing her hand gently. She's dangerous. Australia nodded. And I can't stop watching. Later, Kensington confided in Jarek and Fen, his voice low and guarded. Leora's trying to unsettle everything. I can feel it. Fen nodded grimly. Marana's family won't quit. Jarek growled softly. We stand with you. But watch your back. Kensington's gaze hardened. I intend to. The night's warmth had thinned, replaced by cold uncertainty. The peace in the pack was fragile, tested by old wounds, new threats, and the dangerous allure of shadows lurking too close. Later that night, Australia pulled away from the fire and joined Lani and Sarah beneath the twisted arms of an old cedar, far enough from the others to speak freely. The music and laughter dimmed in the distance, replaced by the soft hum of night insects and wind. I saw her, Australia said tightly. Leora, with him. Lani leaned in, her voice low. She's shameless. She doesn't need shame, Australia replied bitterly. She's perfect, confident. Everyone likes her. The old guard wants Kensington to be with someone like her. Sarah frowned. That doesn't mean he wants her. He chose you. Australia didn't answer right away. Her fingers traced the bark of the cedar absently. She touched him like she already had a claim. Did he pull away? Lani asked. He hesitated. That silence said more than words ever could. 62 Sarah touched her arm. You have every right to feel this way. But Kensington's loyal, Australia. He's not some idiot boy. Australia nodded, though it didn't quiet the storm inside her. I didn't think this would feel so vulnerable. I thought once you find your true place, your people, your mate, it gets easier. Lani laughed softly, but it wasn't amused. It doesn't get easier, it just gets more complicated. Elsewhere in the camp, Leora found Kensington by the training field, sharpening his blade in the moonlight. She walked up behind him slowly, her voice wrapped in silk. You don't have to fight every night, you know. Some wounds don't heal that way. Kensington didn't look up. Some wounds only do heal that way. She crouched beside him, deliberately close. And what about the wounds you hide? The ones Australia doesn't see? He finally looked at her, his eyes hard. I'm not hiding anything. Leora leaned closer, her fingers brushing a cut on his forearm. You carry the weight of her, of the pack, but you deserve something for yourself. He pulled his arm away, but not fast enough. She doesn't trust me, Leora whispered. She watches me like a wolf about to bite. Isn't that exhausting? Kensington stood abruptly. Whatever this is, Leora, it ends now. But her smile only widened. You say that, and yet you haven't walked away. Back at the bonfire, Australia saw it. From the shadows, she watched as Leora followed Kensington into the trees. She didn't follow, not yet. Lani appeared beside her, frowning. You saw them too? 63 Australia nodded. I don't know what hurts more. That she keeps doing it, or that I don't know if he'll say no this time. You need to talk to him, Lani said gently. Before this turns into something it doesn't have to be. Australia's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Or maybe it already is. In the woods, Leora and Kensington walked in silence until they reached a small clearing. I'm not here for games, Kensington said, halting. I'm not playing. Leora stepped closer. I'm offering you something easier, safer, familiar. He looked at her, and for a moment, the weight of everything, war, fate, Australia's awakening, pressed heavy across his face. I don't want easy, he said, voice rough. I want real. Leora's expression tightened. Even if real burns you alive. He turned away, especially then. Back in the camp, Australia didn't sleep. She sat alone. New bonds and old wounds. It started with a simple request. Kensington, Leora called out, I need a quick favor, if you're not too busy. He glanced over, cautious. What is it? The hinge on my cabinet came loose, she said, tucking a loose strand of silver blonde hair behind her ear. Just thought someone strong and handy might know how to fix it. Kensington hesitated, then nodded. Lead the way. 64 Leora's den was deeper in the living quarters, quiet, isolated, soft with candlelight and perfumed air. Kensington stepped inside, eyeing the surroundings warily. Cabinets back there, she said, gesturing vaguely toward a corner. But when he turned back, he caught a flicker of motion, fabric sliding to the ground. Leora had dropped her outer robe. She stood in the middle of the room, backlit by candlelight, wearing only a sheer lace undergarment. Black, with delicate floral embroidery that clung to her curves. Her hair cascaded over her bare shoulders. She didn't cover herself, didn't flinch. She let him look. Kensington's jaw tightened. What is this? Leora stepped toward him slowly, lips parted in a breath that wasn't quite a sigh. I thought you might want something less complicated. Something you could hold without fear of breaking. I didn't come here for this, he said sharply. Her fingers grazed his chest, nails just light enough to tease. You don't have to be alone, Kensington. You've been holding up Australia's storm like it's your burden to bear. I could be your shelter. I could be the one who stays. She leaned in, her voice softening to a near whisper. Let me stay. He caught her wrist before she could touch the buckle of his belt. No, he said, voice hardening. You're not her. Leora's smile wavered, turning brittle. She's drowning in her visions, she snapped. Wrapped in a destiny no one can survive. You're not saving her, Kensington. You're getting dragged under with her. Kensington took a step back, his eyes glinting. Then I'll drown with her. He turned and left without another word. Behind him, Leora stood in silence, fury blooming beneath her flawless skin. Her rejection was complete, but her plan wasn't finished. 65 not by far. Firelight, laughter, and secrets. The pack fire crackled in the center of the clearing, its golden light painting faces in shifting warmth. For the first time in days, Australia didn't feel like a walking storm. She was just a girl sitting by the fire, surrounded by voices that didn't expect her to explain or lead or see. She actually told the elder that his ceremonial beard looked like a dead raccoon. Nira laughed, clutching her stomach. She did not, Australia gasped. She did, added Thorn, a tall, quiet wolf with warm eyes and a sharp sense of irony. And she lived to tell the tale. Barely. Nira, the feisty, flame-haired Omega with a streak of rebellion, winked. He hasn't looked me in the eye since. The group burst into laughter. There was Kalen too, broad-shouldered, slow to speak, but with a softness that made him everyone's silent protector. And little Tavi, still barely 16, but eager to prove herself and fiercely loyal to Australia. They were all misfits in one way or another. But with him, Australia wasn't just the seer or the girl whose mate had once rejected her. She was Australia, the girl who liked roasted chestnuts, who snorted when she laughed too hard, who secretly sang to birds in the morning. Okay, Neera leaned forward, grinning. Truth or dare? Oh no, Australia groaned. We're really doing this? Absolutely, Neera declared. Thorn, you're up. Truth or dare? He smirked. Dare. Neera's grin turned wicked. I dare you to shift, howl, and confess your undying love for Tavi. Tavi turned beet red. Neera. Thorn raised an eyebrow. In front of the entire camp. Yup. 66 he shifted instantly, his sleek grey form shimmering in the moonlight, and let out a rich, rolling howl. Then, in full wolf form, he padded up to Tavi and dropped a flower at her feet. Everyone roared with laughter as Tavi hid her face, but her shy smile peeked out. Australia smiled, but her gaze drifted. Despite the warmth, something gnawed at the edge of her peace. Neera noticed. Hey, she said gently, scooting closer. You're here but not here. What's wrong? Australia hesitated, then leaned in. It's Leora. Neera's face hardened. Of course it is. She's trying to get close to Kensington. I saw it before, and now I feel it even when I don't see it. She's in his orbit. Neera leaned back, kicking at the dirt. She doesn't care about him. She cares about winning, about power. If she thinks getting between you two will give her leverage, she'll do it. And she'll smile while she does. I haven't told Kensington, Australia admitted. I don't want to seem jealous or petty. Australia, Thorn said softly, rejoining them in human form. You're allowed to feel. Jealousy isn't a weakness. You love him, that matters. But love doesn't always win, she whispered. No, Neera agreed. But truth might. Scene. Midnight confessions later that night, when most had wandered off to sleep, Australia stayed behind with Neera and Tavi. You know, Tavi said, voice soft, I always thought mates were supposed to be perfect. You find them, you fall, you fit. Australia stared into the fire. That's the fantasy, but you still believe in it, Neera said carefully. Don't you? 67 Australia nodded. I want to believe in something. If not fate, then choice. And I chose Kensington. Tavi leaned against her. Then don't let lace and lipstick make you forget what's real. They sat in silence, watching the embers burn down. Somewhere not far away, Leora was spinning another web. But here, Australia had her own kind of power. Friendship, loyalty, love, a different kind of pack. Australia, Kensington said, come with me. Scene, only us. Kensington's hidden estate. Australia followed Kensington in wonder. Kensington didn't lead Australia toward the river this time. Instead, he took her beyond the forest's edge, through a private, winding path known only to him, past a waterfall that veiled a hidden entrance carved into the cliffside. Behind it stood a sprawling, modern luxe cabin, more estate than den. Glass walls framed the moonlight. The interior glowed with warmth, polished darkwood floors, velvet furnishings in deep indigos and golds, a stone fireplace crackling low. The scent of cedar and something distinctly Kensington lingered in the air. Every detail whispered elegance and control, just like him. Australia stepped inside slowly, lips parted in awe. You never told me you had this. It's not for the pack, he said, watching her reaction. It's for me, and now, it's for us. He closed the door behind her with a soft, intentional click. You brought me here alone, she murmured, voice low. I brought you here because I'm tired of holding back, Kensington said. From you, from this. 68 He crossed the space between them with slow, deliberate steps, his presence electric, commanding, eyes burning into hers. I want you, Australia. Not because fate says I should. Because I chose you. Her breath caught. Then his hands were in her hair. His mouth found hers, urgent, possessive, reverent. And everything they'd held back shattered. Before the world wakes, dawn slipped into the cabin in soft gold ribbons, filtered through the tall cedar trees that surrounded Kensington's secluded sanctuary. The fire had burned low, but the heat between their bodies hadn't faded. Australia stirred against his chest, her skin flushed with the warmth of tangled sheets and memories that left her body humming. Kensington's arm was draped over her waist, possessive even in sleep, his breath warm against her hair. She turned slowly, careful not to wake him, but the moment her fingers grazed his chest, his eyes fluttered open. "Running away," he murmured, voice husky with sleep. Her lips curved, stretching. He leaned in, pressing a lazy kiss to her bare shoulder. "I have a better idea." Before she could respond, he rolled her beneath him, pinning her to the mattress with the full weight of his body. His eyes searched hers, not for permission, but for the promise they both felt. "We're not done," he whispered, voice low and rough. "Not even close." 69. He kissed her deeply, slowly, like he had all the time in the world. She arched into him, fingers threading through his dark hair, already breathless as the fire between them reignited. This time, it was different. Less frantic, more intense. Kensington worshipped her. Every kiss, every touch, every thrust carried intention. His mouth trailed lower, tasting the places that made her writhe, her thighs trembling under the heat of his tongue, and the sound of his name gasped into the morning air. She pulled him back to her with a need that bordered on desperation. "I need you," she said. "You have me," he answered, guiding himself into her in one smooth, deep motion. They moved together slowly at first, savoring the pressure, the slide, the way their bodies locked into place like a puzzle that had always been missing one final piece. His name left her lips in broken syllables, and when her nails dug into his shoulders, he growled, low and primal, before pressing her harder into the bed. "Say it," he rasped. "I'm yours," she cried out, hips rising to meet his. He kissed her again, harder this time, drinking in the truth of her words like a man starved. Their second climax was raw and fierce. No build-up, no walls, just pure, pulsing heat that left them both gasping. He didn't pull away, didn't let her go, just held her as their heartbeats slowly steadied, skin slick with sweat, the world outside forgotten. For now, 70 Chapter 8, The Lunar Rising. The return to pack life was both welcome and jarring. After the quiet intensity of the cabin, the thrum of Red Moon Pack's daily rhythm felt like a crash of reality. But Australia didn't shrink from it. She walked beside Kensington with her head held high, her skin still tingling with the memory of his touch, her heart armored by the unspoken promise they had shared in the dark. Whispers followed them, not just because they had returned together, but because of what was coming. A ceremony, an announcement, a shift in power. The Alpha's time was drawing to a close. And Kensington, once the golden boy kept on the sidelines, was ready to take his place. Australia sat in on the council meeting, her presence a quiet storm. The old wolves shifted uncomfortably when she entered, but no one dared question her right to be there. Kensington's father, Alpha Granger, acknowledged her with a respectful nod before turning to his son. 71, it's time, he said. You'll take the mantle at the moonrise ceremony. Kensington glanced at Australia, then stood tall. Only if she stands with me. The room stilled. She is not just my mate, he said. She is my equal, my Luna. One of the elders scoffed, but Alpha Granger's eyes, ancient and shrewd, narrowed. Then it shall be done. Prepare for the ceremony. Word spread like wildfire. The Luna has been chosen. Marana's rage was cold and sharp. But it was Leora who made the most noise. She didn't scream or fight. No. Leora slithered closer, bolder. She still spoke of Kensington as if they were bonded by something deeper than politics or expectation. As if the past flirtations still held weight. She cornered him in the training field the day after the council meeting, lips painted crimson, eyes lit with calculated mischief. You'll come to your senses eventually, she purred, trailing a hand along his arm. Australia is a phase, a rebellion. You're meant for someone who understands power. Kensington stepped back, unamused. You mistake me for someone who gives a damn about power plays, Leora. You will, she said, her smile sharp. When you realize love makes you weak. Australia tried to ignore the whispers. She tried to focus on the coming ceremony, the enormity of what it would mean, not just for her and Kensington, but for the entire pack. She walked through the marketplace with her friends, Maya, fierce and loyal, Aylin, soft-spoken but sharp-eyed, and Nessa, a flirt who never met a scandal she didn't enjoy spreading. They flitted from shop to shop, running fingers over silks, laughing over outrageous colors, and whispering about who might challenge Kensington's rise. I still say you should wear red, Nessa said. The bloodier, the better. 72 Aylin laughed. She's not slaying enemies. She's becoming Luna. I can do both, Australia said with a smirk. They landed on a gown of deep indigo silk, elegant but bold, with silver-threaded embroidery that shimmered like moonlight. When Australia stepped into the fitting room and pulled the fabric over her skin, something shifted. She didn't just see herself. She saw the Luna she was becoming. Outside, Maya caught her hand. "Don't let them steal your shine," she said softly. "You were born for this." And Australia believed it, even as Leora watched from across the market with narrowed eyes and silent intent. The ceremony was coming, and not everyone would bow quietly. 73 Chapter 9. Tension before the ceremony. The days leading to the ceremony passed in a blur of whispers, shifting loyalties, and uneasy excitement. The Red Moon Pack was buzzing with anticipation. For the first time in a generation, the Alpha seat would transition not through death or exile, but choice. Kensington would become Alpha, and Australia, if all proceeded as planned, his Luna. But nothing in the pack was ever simple. Word of the upcoming lunar ceremony spread like wildfire. Elders murmured in corners, younger wolves preened in preparation for the grand event, and everyone speculated about what kind of Luna Australia would be. Would she be a firebrand like her grandmother? A healer? A queen? 74 Australia wandered the market square with her friends, Neva, tall and sharp-tongued with streaks of silver in her braids, and Delia, round-faced and quick to laugh. They were both recent arrivals to the pack, brought in after a territory consolidation from the northern boundary, and they had quickly become her confidants. "Try this one," Neva said, holding up a sleek, emerald-green dress that glimmered with thread woven from sunroot silk. Delia wrinkled her nose. "Too regal. She's not marrying a crown. She's marrying a man." Australia laughed, the tension in her chest easing with their teasing. She reached out and fingered the hem of a flowing cream dress with embroidered moons and a deep neckline. "That one looks like you," Delia said softly. "Like I used to be or like I want to be?" Australia asked. "Like who you are now. Wild, glowing, and impossible to ignore." Australia blushed and turned toward the vendor to purchase the dress. But as she moved, she caught a flash of honey blonde hair in the distance. Leora, the younger sister of Marana, and the pack's persistent shadow. Australia tensed. She didn't need to follow the flicker of motion to know where Leora was headed. She'd watched this same performance play out more than once in recent days, Leora brushing up against Kensington when others were around, leaning in close to whisper something just out of earshot, pressing her hand on his forearm and laughing too brightly. It was all subtle enough not to be formally challenged. But Australia saw it, felt it. The way Leora moved like she already owned the role Australia was meant to step into. She swallowed her frustration and turned back to Neva and Delia. "She's at it again," Australia murmured. Delia glanced behind her and raised an eyebrow. "Do you think Kensington is falling for it?" 75, "He's loyal to you," Neva said quickly. "But she's playing the long game. And the council likes her bloodline." Australia felt a cold knot twist in her gut. The council, of course. Her ascension as Luna wasn't just about love, it was about power. Symbolism, politics. Later that evening, Australia and her friends took a walk through the moonlit glade, seeking a reprieve from the scrutiny. They stopped by a small spring near the edge of the forest where the water glittered like stars. "You need to show them you belong," Neva said as she dipped her feet into the cool water. "Not just to Kensington, but to this pack. Publicly. They want tradition," Delia added. "But you are something new. Something more. Then I need to stop hiding in the shadows," Australia whispered. As they talked, back at the main house, Leora found another opportunity. She'd waited for Kensington by the war room, knowing he'd stop there after training. "You've been working too hard," she said softly as he approached. He gave her a cautious nod. "Preparing. You don't need to do everything alone, you know." She stepped closer, her voice smooth. "You could have someone beside you. Someone who understands this world." She brushed a strand of hair from her shoulder, revealing her bare collarbone. She wore a pale violet gown that clung to her curves, unashamed in its intention. Kensington stepped back half a pace. "Leora," but she only smiled and placed her hand on his chest. "I only want what's best for the pack. And for you." She leaned in, but Kensington turned his head. "I've made my choice." Her smile thinned. "Has the council?" He paused at that, and Leora saw the crack. The one she'd been looking for. 76 She didn't need to win Kensington's heart. She only needed to make the pack question who belonged by his side. Later that night, Australia stood alone in Kensington's hidden cabin. He had brought her here a few nights earlier, into its velvet-lined warmth and firelit hush. Now it was quiet, empty but scented with memory. She sat at the hearth, staring into the flames. There were forces around her, ancient, political, personal. But she wasn't the girl who flinched anymore. She was a seer, she was the key, and she would not lose what she loved to ambition and games. The fire sparked, and behind her, the wind shifted. War wasn't coming, it was already here. 77 Chapter 10, Whispers and Warnings. The morning air was crisp as Australia stepped out of the dressmaker's tent, the fabric swatches still clutched in her hand. Her friends trailed behind her, their arms looped with bags and boxes. The village had come alive with excitement for the upcoming Alpha Ascension ceremony, and with Kensington officially choosing her as his Luna, whispers followed her like shadows. "I still think the emerald silk suits you best," Lani said, adjusting the box balanced on her hip. "It brings out your eyes." 78. The black velvet had more bite, Sarah chimed in. "Very Luna." Australia gave a half smile, heart thudding with nerves. She should have been excited, and a part of her was. But the pressure was mounting. Everywhere she turned, someone was watching, judging, waiting for her to fail. Back at the dressmaker's, encountering Leora lingering, pretending to peruse accessories. She held up a glittering necklace to her throat, her voice sweet but loud enough to carry. "Do you think Kensington would prefer silver or gold against my skin?" Australia didn't answer. Her spine stiffened, but she kept walking. Later that evening, Kensington returned to the cabin with a bottle of aged whiskey and a tight jaw. Australia watched from the sofa as he poured a drink with more force than finesse. "Hard day?" she asked gently. He exhaled. "My father met with the High Council today. They want the ceremony to double as a reaffirmation of tradition. Old bloodlines, old alliances." He agreed. "What does that mean for us?" He looked at her, eyes stormy. "It means we make a very visible, very controversial statement." Australia joined him by the fire. "I can handle whispers. I was born into them." He set down his glass and cupped her face. "You're not just my Luna. You're my choice, my equal." And that terrifies them. A knock sounded on the door. It was Ronan. He stood on the porch, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "I come to make peace," he said. Kensington didn't move. Australia stepped outside. "Why now?" Ronan's eyes softened as they landed on her. "Because you're ascending, and if I'm going to serve this pack, I need to know who leads it." 79 Kensington joined her at the threshold. "You don't have to accept us. But you will respect us." Ronan nodded once. "I came to tell you something. Leora, she's not just here for you. She's here because Marana is maneuvering. They want the Luna seed back in their family." Australia's breath caught. "She still thinks she can claim you. And if she can't," Ronan said, gaze shifting, "they might try to break you." He turned and walked away, leaving silence in his wake. Kensington closed the door, his hand trembling. This isn't just jealousy anymore. It's politics. Australia opened the Seer's journal later that night, her fingertips trembling. The pages pulsed with light, and new writing etched itself into the parchment. "Beware the smiling wolf. The bite comes not in battle, but in celebration." She looked up at Kensington, heart heavy. "They won't just come for me," she whispered. "They'll come for us." He wrapped his arms around her. "Then let them. We'll be ready." Their mouths met in a kiss that was as reverent as it was hungry. Kensington lifted her easily, carrying her to the large bed draped in deep emeralds and silver, the colors of the Moonfire bloodline. He laid her down gently, as if she was something precious, then leaned over her, brushing his nose against her jaw, her neck, her collarbone. Australia's hands moved to the hem of his shirt, pushing it up, revealing the hard lines of his chest. She traced the scar over his ribs, the one he got protecting her from a rogue years ago. He kissed her fingertips as they moved, worshipping her touch. Clothing melted away between kisses and sighs, until only skin met skin. Kensington's mouth mapped her body with aching slowness, learning and relearning her every curve, every sound she made. She responded in kind, her wolf rising with his, two souls dancing beneath the stars hidden behind the cabin's heavy wood and glass. When they joined, it was not fast or frantic. It was deliberate, deep. Kensington cradled her face between his hands as they moved together, their breaths sinking, their hearts pounding. 80, he whispered her name like a vow. She clung to him like he was the only thing tethering her to the earth. And when they shattered, together, It was not in silence. It was in her calling his name, and him swearing his devotion against her lips, against her skin, against the very air between them. Afterward, he held her to his chest, their legs tangled beneath the heavy quilt. She traced idle shapes over his shoulder. "Whatever happens at the ceremony," she whispered, "promise me something. Anything. Don't let them change who we are." He kissed the top of her head. Not a chance. Shadows danced across their skin as they lay together in the tangle of Kensington's luxurious bed. But something was shifting. Kensington's wolf stirred beneath the surface, restless, demanding. The pull of the bond between them had grown sharper, thicker in the air, humming through their skin. Australia felt it too. Her wolf answered without hesitation, rising in her chest with a low, possessive growl of wanton surrender. Kensington leaned over her, the heat of his body returning as he pressed a kiss to the hollow of her throat, then to her shoulder. He paused there, his breath hot against her skin. "You feel it, don't you?" he murmured, the bond, pressing for more. Australia arched slightly beneath him, her fingers weaving into his hair. "Yes, my wolf, he wants to mark you. Fully, claim you. Not just in love, but by blood and bone." "Are you sure?" Her heart thundered in her chest. "I've never been more sure of anything." 81. A low rumble echoed from his throat, vibrating through her as Kensington's canines elongated, his wolf pushing through, but not taking over. He was still in control, but the primal part of him had emerged. He kissed her once more, slow and deep. His hand traveled down her body, marking her with each kiss. Australia sang beneath him, her magic responding with a shimmer of silver just beneath the surface. When he returned to the crook of her shoulder, his body trembled with restraint. "I'll go slow," Kennington promised. "Mines," Australia whispered, her voice trembling with anticipation. "Mark me." With a final brush of his lips against her skin, he bit down not to hurt, but to seal. The mark was ancient, sacred, the mating bite. A sharp, burning pleasure surged through her body, followed by a golden flood of heat that cascaded through every nerve, binding them on a soul-deep level. Her magic flared in response, wrapping around him like a vow, sealing the connection between their wolves. Kensington let out a groan as he pulled back. It glowed briefly, silver and gold, before settling into a crescent shape on her shoulder. She was panting, her hands fisting the sheets, but her eyes were fierce and open. "Now," she said, her voice dark with need, "I will claim you." Kensington's breath caught. Australia rolled him beneath her, straddling him, her eyes glowing with power and primal heat. Her wolf had taken over, graceful and confident. She leaned down and kissed him, slow and possessive, before her own canines elongated. He tilted his head, offering his shoulder freely. 82. Her bite was firm, deep, a perfect echo of his. And when the mark settled, twin to hers, a jolt of magic rippled through the room, strong enough to rattle the glass. They were mated, truly, fully, irrevocably. Kensington growled, flipping her beneath him again with a fluid surge of strength, his mouth trailing down her throat. This time, the joining was even more urgent, more connected. The bond sang through every movement, every breath, every thrust. No more restraint, no more doubt. They moved together like wildfire and wind, feeding each other until they came undone. This time with tears in their eyes and whispered promises on their tongues. Afterward, they laid in silence, their bodies slick with sweat, their hearts in sync. Kensington stroked her marked shoulder, his eyes soft but fierce. "You're mine now, Australia. Not just because of the bite, but because I choose you. Every day, every night, no matter who tries to come between us." She smiled sleepily. "Then we'll fight him together." The vision, the quiet between them was warm and full, their bond newly sealed, their wolves content and curled together in spirit. Kensington had dozed off beside her, one arm slung possessively across her waist. The fire had died to glowing embers, and moonlight streamed through the windows in hushed beams. Australia should have felt peace. Instead, her heart pounded. 83. The Seer's journal, closed and resting on the nightstand, began to thrum. Her mark tingled, and then, without warning, her breath caught in her throat as the world around her dissolved into silver smoke. She was taken. The vision hit like a wave crashing through her chest. In the vision, she stood in the heart of the pack's ceremonial clearing. The moon was full, but clouds churned angrily above. A crowd had gathered, wolves snarling, some in human form, others mid-shift, all on edge. Marana stood at the front, cloaked in black. Her eyes gleamed with defiance and triumph. Beside her, Leora held a broken crown. The Alpha's coronet, snapped down the center. Kensington stood bloody and furious, barely upright, his arm braced over a deep wound at his side. Behind him, Australia could see herself, or a version of herself, cloaked in white. Radiant with power, her hand gripping the Seer's journal, pages fluttering as though caught in a storm. The pack was splintering. Brothers and sisters were turning on each other. Some followed Marana, seduced by her promises of power and purity. Others rallied behind Kensington and Australia, howling defiance into the night. Lightning cracked the sky. Blood stained the ceremonial stones. A war was erupting, not just over territory, but over truth and leadership. And over the future of their kind. Then, Marana turned, locking eyes with the real Australia watching from the vision's edge. "You were always going to bring this," she hissed. "The wolf who sees too much." Back in the cabin 84, Australia gasped and sat upright, drenched in sweat. Her body trembled violently, her breath ragged. The vision's residue clung to her skin like ash. Kensington stirred immediately. "Australia, what is it?" She reached blindly for the journal, her hands shaking. "It's coming. What is?" She looked at him, eyes wide, voice barely above a whisper. "War." Kensington stilled. "Marana, she's building something. A faction. She's going to break the pack, claim power by force. And Leora, she is not just helping. She wants your throne, Kensington." A muscle in his jaw ticked. "Then she'll be disappointed." Australia clutched his hand, her voice thick with urgency. "We have to prepare. The ceremony is not just about crowning anymore. It's a battleground." Kensington wanted nothing more than to cast Marana and her sister, Leora, out as rogues. He had to get to his father. If he did not handle these two witches soon, who knows what would become of the two. At this moment, he felt like strangling Leori and throwing Miranda out to be fed to the rogues. How did he allow things to get this far? They would constantly be a threat to his mate. Kensington would die defending Australia. Something had to be done. He needed to think rationally. He had to think things through. His father would know what to do. And so he decided to talk to his father, first thing in the morning. Kensington pulled Australia onto the nip of his chest once more, feeling the mate bond stronger than ever. 85, she rustled nearer to his skin, feeling the electric pull between them. Seeming their closeness was not close enough. The two fell into a deep sleep, breathing in the other's breath. The air of solitude was cast into the night. Chapter 11, marked by moonlight. The moon was high and swollen with silver light, casting a glow over Kensington's hidden cabin. The scent of cedar and clean linen lingered in the room as Australia lay tangled in 86 Kensington's arms, the bond between them newly solidified, burning and sacred. His mark pulsed faintly at the curve of her neck, proof of what they had just become. Luna, mate, his. She felt stronger, not just physically, but in the bone-deep way of wolves whose fates had finally aligned. "Do you regret it?" Kensington murmured against her skin. Australia's laugh was low, breathless. Not even a little. They had loved through fire and silence, through visions and scars. And now, through this new claiming, their wolves had sealed what fate only hinted at. But the peace of the moment was short-lived. Just as dawn broke and Kensington drifted into a rare, unguarded sleep, Australia's breath caught. Her body tensed. The air changed. It wasn't the scent of danger. It was the pull of her gift. A vision seized her. She was no longer in the cabin. The world turned dark and red. Blood on snow. Screams. Shadows clashed under a storm-filled sky. Wolves ripped into one another, and in the distance, Marana stood on a stone dais, cloaked in black and silver, her hands lifted in ritual. A pack torn in two. Fire bursting from the earth. The moon blackened. Australia gasped and yanked herself out of the vision, breath coming in ragged bursts. Her skin was slick with sweat. Kensington stirred instantly, his instincts razor-sharp. "What is it?" he asked, already half-risen. "Marana," she said, voice tight. "She's going to fracture the pack. There's going to be a war." His eyes narrowed. "How do you know?" "I saw it. She was performing a ritual. Something dark. The council. The pack. They were fighting. Blood everywhere." 87 Kensington stood, grabbing a robe and pulling it around his shoulders. "We need to talk to my father. Now." Back at the main pack house, the ceremony preparations were in full swing. Kensington's ascension to Alpha and Australia's recognition as Luna were already stirring murmurs among the elders, especially after their sudden bond mark. But with the looming threat in Australia's vision, everything felt unstable. Kensington's father, Alpha Ryden, received them in the council hall, a domed chamber of stone and glass. He listened as Australia recounted her vision, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. When she finished, silence blanketed the room. "We've suspected Marana was meddling in forbidden rites," Alpha Ryden finally said. "But this is prophecy. We can't ignore it. She's gathering allies," Kensington added. "We've already seen her sister trying to wedge herself between us." Ryden's face darkened. "Then we move forward with the ceremony immediately. No delays. A united front will strengthen our claim." Australia nodded, grateful for the Alpha's decisive tone. That afternoon, she joined her friends in the town square's market, searching for a dress worthy of her lunar ceremony. Nael, one of her newer companions, was a healer with an affinity for glamour spells. She flitted from vendor to vendor, holding up silks and velvets. "You need something that says, 'Untouchable Goddess,'" she declared. Rhea, a feisty warrior Australia had bonded with during training, laughed. "Or something that'll make Kensington lose his damn mind." Australia smiled, warmed by their presence. 88. "I just want to feel like I belong," she admitted, running her fingers across a bolt of silver-threaded fabric. "You already do," Nael said. "But that doesn't mean you shouldn't look like royalty while doing it." They settled on a dress of deep indigo, embroidered with silver wolves and crescent moons. When Australia tried it on behind the curtain of the tailor's tent, her friends gasped. She was stunning, powerful, but even as she turned and admired herself in the mirror, a chill crept up her spine. Somewhere in the crowd, she could feel Leora's eyes. Elsewhere in the pack house, Leora was not resting. She moved like smoke, drifting through halls and gathering whispers. Her sister's ambition had always burned, but Leora's spark was colder. More deliberate. She watched Kensington from afar, smiling softly when he passed, brushing her fingers against her collarbone where she imagined his mark might have gone. "You'll be mine yet," she whispered. "Even if I have to peel her out of your arms." Back in her room that evening, Australia stood alone in front of her mirror. The dress hung beautifully in the wardrobe. Her hair was braided and wrapped in silver threads. But her eyes were distant. She placed her hand over her heart and whispered a prayer to the moon goddess. "Let this bond be strong. Let this truth be light. And if darkness comes, let me be the fire." The celebration of Kensington choosing his Luna began at moonrise. 89. The trees formed a natural cathedral, ancient trunks twisting upward like they were reaching for the moon goddess herself. Everything was bathed in a lunar glow, the air thick with power and promise. The gown had been custom fitted by the elder tailors, embroidered with glyphs of protection and spiritual awakening. The train trailed behind her like mist, and at her back was a cloak the color of twilight, clasped with her grandmother's sigil, a key and a dagger entwined under the crescent moon. Her friends, Lani, Sarah, and the flirtatious but loyal Thorn, waited near the altar. Kensington's beater in training, a sharp-eyed wolf named Doran, stood to the side, flanked by the Alpha Council. Even Ronan, bruised ego and all, was present, his expression unreadable. And then Kensington appeared. He descended from the higher ridge above the hollow, dressed in black edged in silver, his long coat flowing with each step. His presence pulled every eye. Moonlight kissed his dark hair, and the power that radiated off him was no longer just potential, it was promise. Australia's breath caught. He wasn't just her mate. He was their Alpha, and she would be their Luna. The ancient rites began with the lighting of the moonfire, a silver flame ignited by sacred herbs and blood ritual. The flame swirled in unnatural patterns. They joined hands. The moonfire roared. Their wolves surged forward within him, and the pack collectively gasped as Kensington shifted. His massive silver-grey wolf prowled around Australia, circling her with slow, reverent 90 steps. Australia dropped to her knees, her magic pulsing. Her wolf shimmered to the surface, not a full shift, but a radiant energy, a silhouette of fire and light flaring behind her. Kensington's wolf howled once, a sound of ancient claiming. Her body shuddered, a crescent wrapped in flame, glowing against her collarbone. The pack howled in unison. Later, as the celebration began, music, feasting, dancing beneath the stars, Australia stood near the moonfire, still absorbing the energy of what had passed. Wolves toasted with dark berry wine. Children darted between the tables, draped in flowers. But tension stirred behind the smiles. Maris, Leora, and Marana lingered on the fringe of the circle. Leora was dressed in deep crimson, her neckline plunging, her expression unreadable as she watched Kensington from across the flames. Marana stood with arms crossed, eyes sharp as ever. She whispered something to an elder at her side. Another plan, another game. Australia looked toward the flames. The mark on her neck pulsed faintly. Her grandmother's journal was tucked beneath her cloak. And in the flicker of firelight, she thought she saw a shadow move unnaturally across the glade. A whisper of something darker, older, lurking beyond the celebration. A war was coming, but tonight, the moon had chosen her. 91 Chapter 12, Bonds and Banter. The ceremony had passed in a whirl of music, moonlight, and the subtle weight of destiny settling over Australia's shoulders. Now, as the embers of celebration cooled, the heart of the pack pulsed with a new kind of energy. Australia was no longer just the seer. She was the Luna to be. And the pack buzzed with gossip, admiration, jealousy, and curiosity. But what Australia hadn't expected was how normal life suddenly seemed. How after all the magic, betrayal, and sensual fire with Kensington, she found herself sipping strong coffee with her new friends while dodging questions about what exactly had gone on in his luxurious hidden cabin. "I swear," Lani said, flopping onto the sun-warmed blanket spread beneath the weeping willows near the training field, "if one more wolf asks me if you guys sealed the bond, I'm going to throw myself in the river." "Why?" Australia asked innocently, arching a brow. "Need to cool down?" "Oh, she wants to be thrown in the river," snorted Sarah. "Preferably by that new warrior from the southern ridge." Lani fanned herself dramatically. "Listen, if Darren so much as howls at me, I'll collapse like a Victorian maiden. Catch me, girls." 92 Australia laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. It bubbled out of her like a stream finding sunlight, and her friends joined her, their laughter rolling across the grass. Sarah, usually the most composed, leaned over with a smirk. "So, speaking of collapsing, should we talk about how Kensington limped for a full day after he came back from his nature retreat with you?" Australia's face flushed instantly. "Oh my moon," she muttered. "You noticed that?" "Noticed? Girl, half the pack thought he fought a mountain lion." "Well, technically," Lani said, wiggling her eyebrows, "he did wrestle a wild animal." The group dissolved again into laughter, and Australia buried her face in her hands. Okay, she said, grinning through her fingers. "Enough. I'm begging." "No way," Lani said. "We haven't even discussed the look he gave you during the moon toast. If he could have dragged you off the stage, he would have. It's not my fault he's intense," Australia murmured, smiling despite herself. "Intense, honey," Sarah said. "That man looked at you like you were made of stardust and sin." Before Australia could respond, a familiar deep voice interrupted their bubble of joy. "Should I be concerned about this conversation?" Kensington stood just behind them, shirt half unbuttoned, a carved wooden training baton resting against his shoulder. His hair was tousled, and he looked entirely too smug. "Only if you're afraid of stardust and sin," Sarah quipped. He shot her a look. "I fear neither." Lani nudged Australia. "Moon help you. He's here." "Oh hush," Australia said, standing and brushing off her legs. Kensington reached for her hand, lacing their fingers with casual intimacy. "Your father invited us to dinner. Formal. Pack hall. Great," Australia said, eyes wide. "I'll bring my best posture and most awkward table stories." 93 dinner was a formal affair, but Australia's friends had already infiltrated her life with such chaotic warmth that nothing ever felt too stiff anymore. Her father had prepared a speech. He fumbled through it with a glass of wine in one hand and a napkin of scribbled notes in the other. He praised Kensington, toasted Australia's resilience, and then accidentally insulted Lani by implying she was the rowdiest she-wolf this side of the river. "I take that as a compliment," Lani shouted across the table. "You know I could have been beater if I liked paperwork." Everyone laughed. Even Kensington's father, the stoic Alpha Magnus, cracked a grin. Later, someone passed around a bottle of homemade berry mead, and things devolved quickly. "Okay," Lani said, slamming her mug down. "Truth or dare, future Luna." "Oh spirits," Australia groaned. "No backing out," Sarah added. You're one of us now. Kensington leaned in. Should I be concerned? You should always be concerned around us, Lani said, eyes twinkling. Australia took a long sip of mead. Fine. Truth. What was the exact moment you knew you wanted to kiss Kensington? Australia blinked. You have 3 seconds or it becomes a dare, Sarah warned. Okay. The moment he touched my hand in the woods. When he promised to help me understand the journal. There was a look, Lani said dreamily. That's how it always starts. Kensington raised an eyebrow. And here I thought it was the moment I ripped a rogue in half. That too, Australia admitted with a grin. As the night wore on, the group moved outside, gathering around a fire pit. Lani told an embarrassingly animated story about her first shift, which involved falling out of a tree mid-transformation and flashing a group of passing hikers. 94 Sarah recounted the time she accidentally challenged the old beater during a full moon run because she thought he'd stolen her cloak. Even Kensington shared a rare story of his childhood, how he once got stuck in his wolf form for 2 days after trying to sneak into the healer's hut. You howled for help? Australia asked through tears of laughter. He nodded solemnly, and then they found me tangled in a herb net. Lani nearly fell off her log. You poor pup, I bet they made fun of you for years. They still do, Kensington muttered, glaring good-naturedly at a warrior who had walked by chuckling. By the time the fire burned down, the stars were bright above them, and the pack felt, for once, like family. They ended the evening playing a ridiculous made-up game called Howl or Dare, which Lani insisted she invented during a drunken festival. Sarah dared Kensington to howl mid-sentence while speaking to his father, which he actually did the next morning, earning a long, confused stare from Alpha Magnus. Australia had to impersonate her wolf trying to flirt. Her clumsy, over-the-top growls and winks had everyone in hysterics, and someone even fell off their log laughing. Sarah attempted to serenade Lani in a terrible falsetto, while Lani tried to perform an interpretive dance about shifting for the first time. Kensington couldn't stop laughing, and even a few elders joined the fun, shaking their heads in mock disapproval while hiding smiles. But not everything was light. From the tree line, Marana watched the fire with narrowed eyes. Beside her, Leora pouted. I told you, he still looks at her. Even after everything. He won't for long, Marana said darkly. The warmth of laughter did not reach their shadows. And Australia, though smiling, felt a chill pass over her shoulders that no fire could shake. 95 Chapter 13, Shadows in the Hall. The scent of sage and pine still clung to the air the morning after the fire pit gathering, a stubborn reminder of camaraderie and laughter. But as dawn broke across the Crescent Hills, a different energy began to wind its way through the pack. Duty, legacy, ceremony. Australia awoke wrapped in Kensington's arms, their limbs tangled beneath layers of soft fur throws. The golden morning light filtered through the wide windows of the Alpha's hidden cabin, casting a warm glow across the rich woods and stone. It was a place of sanctuary, luxurious and isolated, lined with bookshelves, carved artifacts, and fur-lined rugs that told the history of generations past. But the peace of it felt fragile now, like a dream held too long. Kensington stirred beside her and kissed her shoulder, the rough scrape of his beard sending shivers down her spine. You're quiet this morning, he murmured. Just thinking, she replied, staring at the ceiling. About the ceremony, she nodded. About everything. The pack, the lunar roll, Marana, Leora, what it all means. Kensington sat up, the sheet slipping down his chest. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, softened as he looked at her. You were born to lead beside me, Estra. The seer in you was always meant to rise. And I don't give a damn what Leora or her sister think. I know, she said, though a flicker of doubt tugged at her. But not everyone agrees. He leaned over and kissed her gently. Then we'll make them see. 96 The pack hall, usually filled with the clamor of warriors and council members, now brimmed with excitement and whispering anticipation. The upcoming lunar ceremony was not only a tradition, it was a declaration. Australia, the seer, the outlier, was stepping into power alongside the heir. Preparations swirled around her like a storm. Gowns were ordered, rituals prepared, guest packs invited. Australia and her friends walked through the open market district in search of her ceremonial dress, pausing to taste candied pine cones and admire silk dyed with moonlight essence. Okay, Lani said, dragging Australia to a boutique door. If we don't find a dress in here, I'm shifting and dragging you into the river. Tempting, Australia muttered. Inside, the shop was a sensory overload of shimmer and scent, amber oils, woven silver threads, and furs so soft they seemed to purr under touch. Australia emerged from the dressing room in a deep green gown embroidered with obsidian thread. Sarah clapped her hands. That one. It's like the forest claimed you. Lani's eyes widened. Kensington will faint. Which I want to witness. The shopkeeper, a dainty elder wolf with sharp eyes, approached. That dress was stitched during the last blood moon. Worn by no one since. It waited for you. Australia blinked, unsure how to respond. Take it as a sign, Lani whispered. Meanwhile, Kensington met with his father and the Council of Elders in the war chamber. The stone walls glowed with torchlight, and a massive table carved with the pack's crest sat at the center. The conversation began formally but quickly turned. We must be wary of Marana, Elder Holt said. She still commands loyalty among some of the outer clans. Alpha Magnus nodded. And she's clever. She won't strike without cunning. 97. Let her come, Kensington growled. I'm done waiting for shadows to move. Australia's visions will give us the upper hand. Her visions are a gift, Magnus agreed. But your bond with her must be solid. There can be no doubts when you ascend. Kensington's jaw tensed. He knew exactly what his father meant. No weakness. No hesitation. Australia is not a weakness, he said. She's my equal. Then prove it, the elder challenged. Publicly. With more than just ceremony. Show the pack your unity in battle, in blood, in vision. Kensington met the gaze head on. We will. That evening, the hall buzzed with music and mingling as visiting pack members arrived for pre-ceremony celebrations. The scent of roasted meats, spiced berries, and honey wine filled the air. Australia moved through the crowd, nodding politely, laughing when required, her smile practiced. She found Sarah and Lani by the punch bowl. Did you see Leora? Sarah whispered. She's wearing black lace at a celebration. She looks like a mourning widow and a temptress. She cornered Kensington, Lani added. Again, she's bold. Australia's stomach tightened. She didn't respond. Across the room, Leora leaned close to Kensington. Her hand grazed his forearm as she laughed at something only she found amusing. Her gaze flicked to Australia, full of dark promise. But Kensington's expression remained unreadable. Cold. Polite. Still, Australia turned away. She didn't need to see more. Not tonight. Not with shadows still gathering. The night deepened. Australia slipped away from the crowd and wandered into the moonlit courtyard. She found herself face to face with Elder Mirren, one of the few council members who had supported her from the beginning. Heavy night? Mirren asked. 98, heavier than most. You carry more than you let on. That's Seer's blood. It comes with visions and burdens. Australia met her eyes. How do you lead when so many doubt you? By making them realize you're the one they'd better not doubt, Mirren said.